Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mighty the Armadillo here.
And I am Ray the Flying Squirrel, and we are back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of newer Super Mario Bros. DS,
a ROM hack of New Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo DS, made by the one and only Newer team.
So, yesterday, we did somehow manage able to experience with the first world of this ROM hack, which appears to be called Gold Leaf Plains.
And oh no, we actually did that world no problem, despite the fact I accidentally died during the forms within a castle level due to the forms of not used to it, the forms of the lack of, mid-air spin twirling thing in mid-air. But regardless of such though, it's about the fact that luckily we still managed to get ourselves every single star coins in that world. So as a result, so far we've actually got 24 of those star coins being collected so far.
And also we did somehow experiencing every single stages on World 1. So
yeah, with that being said, today for this video is that we are about to be diving into World 2, which appears to be called Crystal Sewers, because obviously though this does manage to take place in the underground and is filled to the brim with a lot of pipes
and crystals especially, so
yeah, now you think about it, it's about the fact that the second world in this ROM hack, it feels remarkably similar to the forms of how it does it on Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition, where basically though, in World 2 in that game, it does manage to take place in the underground caverns and stuff. So as a result,
except the noticeable differences this time is about the fact that obviously though, we don't have accessibility to touchscreen, because as you can see on the bottom screen right there, for that particular item, as we somehow still got, which appears to be the Hammer Flower, basically though, in order to actually activate your inventory item this time around in this ROM hack. Now remember back in New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, where basically though you have to only use the touchscreen in order to bring out your item inventory with you, which is also applies to the forms of not only Super Mario 3D Land, but in addition to New Super Mario Bros. 2 as well. So, at the very least though, it's about the fact, as you can see, that not only you can able to use the touchscreen still, but also you can now select the select button in order to actually do it that way. So, very similar to the forms of how it does it when you're trying to blow up your, when you're trying to actually create your balloon in balloon battle mode for Mario Kart DS. So as a result, no matter what though, except the fact that you can able to actually use the microphone as well. So yeah, you get the idea for this point. So anyways though folks, yes, today's date of course there is the 25th of July today, in some cases in 2025 today.
Yeah, because believe it or not though, it's about the fact that, did you guys know that recently though, it is Stuart's birthday today, which as a result, you know with Stuart, but he forms of Cap King 74, well, apparently it was his birthday today, and apparently though, he's currently now 26 years old. So yeah, happy birthday Stuart, by the way. So I hope you have a fantastic day,
and it's especially noticeable considering the fact that after we're done with this particular recording session and stuff,
then hopefully we'll try to meet up at some point, mainly for the fact that maybe we can able to try out possibly the Bowser Life mode in Super Mario Party Jamboree, Nintendo Switch 2 edition with Jamboree TV on our spare own time. So just in case we can able to actually demonstrate for him, to able to actually see what really happens if we do manage to able to hook up our not only Nintendo Switch 2 camera, but in addition to the forms of trying to able to actually utilize Joy-Con 2 controllers for its mouse controls and everything. So chances are though is about the fact that hopefully though we'll let Maxi will mention more details about the forms of, you know, Nintendo Switch 2 features for Super Mario Party Jamboree, and so whenever he gets into that point. So anyways though, and it's also reassuring about this too, is about the fact that, did you guys know about the fact that recently though, ever since around a couple of days back, did you know that Mario Superstar Baseball for the Nintendo GameCube has recently become 20 years old recently, which yes, it's been 2 decades old, or 2 decades ago, since Mario Superstar Baseball did first came out on the Nintendo GameCube, within the Japanese version specifically, but then it wasn't until later on in 2005 that the European versions will get it in during the forms of in November, and then meanwhile in the American version gets the game in during in August. So yeah, because that was the only Mario Baseball game that it does manage to came out in multitude of regions, including European countries, because like what I would say since that Mario and Luigi have already mentioned about this in their Let's Play of Mario Super Sluggers back in 2023, that obviously the Mario Super Sluggers never saw light of day in European countries, mainly because in the European countries, including UK as well, never experienced baseball on their lives, or perhaps even maybe because of the forms of poor sales of the forms of the European version of Mario Superstar Baseball, especially how ridiculously pricey that game is though nowadays. So, well, hopefully though, maybe that game will be added to the actual Nintendo Switch 2 online expansion pack eventually, alongside with the forms of, you know, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, and it's especially noticeable with the forms of Mario Power Tennis as well. And I do apologize about the forms that tongue twist in the end, folks, but it's mainly because no matter what though, it's been about a couple of hours since we've last played this particular ROM hack, so... But as you can tell, right from the start, this actually is now my turn to do this particular stage, if you couldn't tell. So just so I'm sure for the fact that we won't be making any several mistakes here and there, but if we do, well, chances are though is about the fact that, again, like we've already established that before, trial and error decides to come into play sometimes, especially considering about the fact that we need to try to get used to with the forms of New Super Mario Bros. DS physics sometimes, so... But I digress. So, as far as I'm aware, that we still able to come across into some familiar power-ups from the likes of the vanilla version of New Super Mario Bros. DS. That's of course Mushroom, Fire Flower, Starman especially, and especially noticeable with Mini Mushroom, and on top of that, Mega Mushroom. But there's one power-up it does not make it appeared in this ROM hack, which appears to be the blue shell, and as far as I'm aware, that item is now being replaced by, as you probably already expect, the Hammer Flower, which I do appreciate about that, because I'm not really a huge fan of Blue Shell to me, though, apart from some situations, like, for instance, though, trying to able to actually access to, you know, secret exits for here and there, specifically, though, in World 1 Tower level, and in addition to, let's say, the ones in World 5, for instance, so, although I may be wrong, but either way though, because it has been about, I would say it's been 9 years since I actually have last played New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, kind of thinking about it, all thanks to the forms of the Virtual Console re-release on the Wii U, so yeah, you can get the idea for that point. So, anyways, now it's my turn now to do World 2-3, so as to be expected, it does contain 2 different exits, so... Anywho though, now, also, as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that there's also reassuring about this too, that recently though, we got ourselves a full confirmation about the forms of the new voice actors comes into play, not only for the sake of the forms of Princess Peach, but in addition to Baby Peach as well, and not to mention though, Ray, that could be also applied for Toad and Toadette as well. Yeah, because, kind of thinking about it though, we, haven't thought about the forms of who the actors are until now, for about 1 month later after the release of Mario Kart World for the Nintendo Switch 2, so suffice to say though, we can now able to actually hear more about the forms of what the actors are, who are able to actually did the voice of, you know, not only for Princess Peach, but also Baby Peach, as well as the forms of Toad and Toadette as well, so those are the actors we can probably think about. For the sake of the forms of both Princess Peach and Baby Peach, they've now been voiced by Courtney Lin. So as a result, previously though it was Samantha Kelly, so as a result though it is somehow now changed into, well, Courtney Lin. So yeah, I've honestly have nothing else to say about this, I guess. And meanwhile, in terms of the forms of both Toad and Toadette, if I can recall correctly, although I may be wrong, but regardless of such though, we will try our best if we're able to try to pronounce these names for these actors. So, anywho, in terms of the forms of Toad, as far as I'm aware, Toad's voice has now been replaced by the forms of, let's just say, Layla Barzins. Again, I do apologize for that particular mispronunciation of that surname, by the way. So yeah, that's quite interesting. And as for Toadette, though, she's now being voiced by Laura Starhigh, which I think that's what it says anyway. And also, as far as I'm aware, they also mentioned about the forms of Paul Castro Jr., who plays male Toad players Encounter for the sake of the forms of Mario Kart World. So, Yeah, I guess that's something, especially because, like, we've already established that in the past. Obviously, though, suffice to say, though, in the future generations to come, obviously, though, voice actors will be replaced for the time in the near distant future, especially noticeable because of this age and all that stuff. So because of that, though, some stuff usually happens, you know? Especially after the events of, you know, when Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, they somehow firstly introduced you know, all kinds of voice actors back then. Like, for instance, though, was about the fact that back in 1998, that we somehow firstly introduced into ourselves in Sonic Adventure, which appears to be the fact that that was the first ever official Sonic game to feature, you know, the voice acting and all that stuff, and especially noticeable about the fact that the English dub version of Sonic Adventure, that the voice of Sonic was none other than Ryan Drummond, and then in Journey films have been around Sonic X during that time on the anime, and as far as video games are concerned, for the sake of Shadow the Hedgehog, that Sonic did manage to able to voice by Jason Griffith. And then it wasn't until in 2010 rolls around, all the way up to present day, that I can't believe it's been about almost 15 years ago since that Roger Craig Smith did the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog, since not only Sonic Free Riders, but in addition to Sonic Colors for the Wii/DS. So because of that though, man, time flies, you know? Yeah, especially considering for the fact at that point in time, I have nothing else to say for the sake of the films of when the actors is about to get replaced in the near distant future, so... I mean, on the occasional side of things though, for the sake of the films of Sonic's friends though, like for instance though, with Tails, obviously though it's about the fact that he did manage to able to got several voices in the past, but we do know for certain for one thing that... Oh no, oh I'm screwed, I'm trapped! Oh, I was nearly at the end too, which I'm just like, oh man. Oh well, I suppose I can try this again I guess, but luckily I've got the checkpoint flag, so... Oh yeah, that's another thing too. Unlike the forms of how it does it on New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, basically though, in order to able to actually make the checkpoint work, is that if you see that particular mini flag icon, well, if you do manage to able to progress the actual level, that actually signifies you did somehow reach the checkpoint. However though, in this particular ROM hack, similar to the forms of how it does it on New Super Mario Bros. Wii, New Super Mario Bros. 2, and New Super Mario Bros. U. Heck, even especially noticeable with, I would say, Super Mario Bros. Wonder as well. Basically though, you will able to come across into checkpoint flags visibly until you're able to progress into the stage. So because of that though, that way you won't be able to actually lose track of yourself to know about the fact if you do activate the checkpoint or not. So that's always handy. So anyway, because I already know for the fact that Kate Higgins, about the fact that she already did the voice of Tails, Journey films have been not only in Sonic Free Riders, but all the way up to Sonic, I would say Sonic Lost World, and I would say technically also Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games, so that's as far as I can remember. And conveniently enough for you, Mighty, you've once again triggered the fireworks, so as a result, I wonder what specific Toad House we're about to be... Oh, it's already accessible right there, which obviously though, if you couldn't tell, that it looks like that Mighty is about to grind for some more extra lives, so... Anywho though, so yeah, let's get into the forms of the next discussion we'd like to point things out. And that's what it appears to be for the fact that we got ourselves a whole bunch of announcements for the sake of the forms of the Pokemon Presents, which even then, for what I've seen the actual most recent Pokemon Presents event, it was alright. I mean, it's not the best presents in the world. I mean, there are some interesting highlights though, such as for instance though, we got ourselves some more information, as well as more gameplay footage of course, Pokemon Legends ZA, although we'll explain more about that in a second, because as you can see, we're going into the next level gimmick right there, and this time it's now my turn to do a minecart level. Oh, that sounds familiar. Well, if you ever experienced not only Donkey Kong Country before, but in addition to the roller coaster levels from Donkey Kong Country 2, heck, even with the forms of the bobsled sections in Donkey Kong Country 3 before, you feel right at home when it comes to this part. So basically though, in this level right here, you have to dodge a lot of stuff, including not to fall down to the bottomless pit, because otherwise, if you let your minecart get destroyed
either getting crashed by the ceiling or a wall, you die instantly. So because of that though, yeah, very similar to the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Country Returns, believe it or not. Specifically the Wii version, because we already know for the fact that the 3DS version and the HD version on the Switch version, mind you, they've now able to actually get ourselves the easiest accessibility when it comes to items and such as, you know, Crash Guard. So either way, secret exit as I found it. So either way, thankfully if I do manage to get to crash into the actual gold flagpole right there, I don't die instantly, thankfully, so... And logically though, that way you can able to skip a good chunks of the world. So, also I really love the actual detail about the forms of the different design tower, as you can tell. Because basically though, I believe in World 1, as well as, I would say, World 4, 5, 6, and 7, as far as I'm aware, that the actual tower model remains the same as the forms of the vanilla version of New Super Mario Bros. On the DS. But specifically in this ROM hack, it does manage to able to contain the most unique tower model design, which appears to be almost like a pipe tower. So as a result though, it's able to represent the forms of, you know, traversing into pipes a lot. So either way, and also the background music might sound a bit familiar to you, because it's obviously based off from Super Mario 64 in these slide obstacle courses, and you get the idea for this point. It's the most iconic music in any other Mario games, even to this day, since in 1996. So, because believe it or not though, it's about the fact that recently though, that Super Mario 64, the original version of the game on the Nintendo 64, has already became 29 years old this year, which by that time until next year, it will be 3 decades old, specifically 30, which, again, time flies, you know?
Yeah, tell me about it, especially considering about the fact at this point in time that no wonder why that Super Mario 64 was actually a lot popular these days. Despite how dated it looks now for the sake of the forms of the visual style and everything, but what really excels at is of course the gameplay. So yeah, you get the idea, especially noticeable similar to the forms of how it does it for Sonic Adventure, as well as Crash Bandicoot, and you get the idea for that point. Well, mind you, both Super Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot, they came out the exact same year as each other in 1996, so also around that time period until 2026, that Crash Bandicoot is going to be celebrating 30 years of Crash Bandicoot until 2026, so yeah, that's going to be exciting. But we still haven't heard anything for Crash Bandicoot for quite some time, since in around 2 years ago, after the release of Crash Team Rumble, which, suffice to say though, I highly doubt that particular game is not going to be coming onto Switch anymore, just because I'm pretty sure maybe because of the selling points might have something to do with it, or perhaps even maybe because Crash Team Rumble is nowhere near as popular as the forms of not only Crash Bandicoot The Insane Trilogy, but in addition to Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and of course, most notably, Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time. So as a result, because those 3 games in particular who were able to revive the Crash Bandicoot franchise is actually way more recognizable compared to the forms of how it does it for Team Rumble, because it is nowhere near as popular as the past few years. So as you can tell, we're now on to the next tower level, which is filled to the brim with a lot of vertical shafts. So as a result, yeah, there's going to be a lot of tricky things to do around here. So in fact, no matter what, I'll let that Dry Bones decide to come up. No, I want to do a ground pound while in midair, so that way I can able to stop my midair movements. So alright, there we go. Whew. Take a bit of while to able to learn that technique for. So, yeah, no matter what though is about the fact that, suffice to say for this point, is that, as far as I'm aware, that sometimes in some levels in World 2, it has filled to the brim with a lot of switches sometimes, mainly for the forms of trying to able to actually access to other areas, and on top of all that stuff though, time limit switches, if you couldn't tell from that particular section right there, as far as what, Mighty has already been through, and suffice to say that there's going to be a lot of times for the fact that we have to go ahead and backtrack for a little bit. So either way, it's hard for me to explain personally, because even then, you get the idea for this point. Alright, not too shabby right there. Yep, especially considering for the fact that I believe you're now entering into the second Bowser Jr. fight, which is pretty much exactly the same, so nothing different from there, except now you now need to avoid those piranha plants. So, but thankfully though, I managed to finish him off within 2 hits, because just like before, in New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, if you try to perform a ground pound, it actually deals double damage, whilst if you try to jump onto him once, then obviously though is about the fact you only got 2 hits left to be able to finish Bowser Jr. off, so... yeah, it's nothing new or anything, apart from the fact that unlike in newer Super Mario Bros. Wii ROM hack, at the very least it did manage able to bring brand new boss battles that is exclusive onto that ROM hack in mind, so... anyway, so now it's my turn now to do a tightrope level, so this will be interesting. But anyway, so as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that there's also another thing I would like to explain. In terms of the forms of something Pokemon Presents related, yes indeed, we got ourselves some more information for the sake of the forms of not only a huge chunk of the forms of those Pokemon mobile games for time to time, which is nothing all that special to me though, but regardless of such though, unless if you're curious to check it out, then obviously though you can. So as a result though, we're able to actually hear more about several of the events that's been going on for not only for Pokemon Go, but in addition to Pokemon Masters EX, and on top of that, Pokemon Sleep, and I think that's as far as I can think about it. Oh, and let's not forget ourselves the forms of Pokemon Cafe Remix, which is nothing all that ordinary to me though, but still, no matter what though, and also they somehow managed able to advertise the 4th anniversary of Pokemon Unite game since in 2021 when it first released. Back then, during the forms of being a lockdown year, or should I say the some sort of like an epilogue to the actual pandemic rules as far as anything else is considering, but either way. And also we got ourselves some more gameplay footage for the very first time for the sake of the forms of Pokemon Champions for both the Nintendo Switch and mobile phones. And also it did say it's going to be coming until specifically at some time in 2026, so I guess that makes sense, considering for the fact that that will mark the 30th anniversary of the Pokemon franchise, so I guess that makes sense for that regard. And on top of all that stuff though, we got ourselves some, again, more information as well as more gameplay footage of Pokemon Legends EA for both Switch 1 as well as Switch 2, although ultimately though, thankfully though, they somehow managed able to capture the footage based off from Nintendo Switch 2 version, just because I feel like that the Switch 2 version is going to be a lot more superior compared to the forms of Switch 1, just because of all that graphics, frame rate, and hopefully without any some sort of technical hiccups, unlike you know what I'm saying, with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on Switch 1, which I'm still generally surprised about the fact that they've never actually got ourselves a Switch 2 re-release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet as a standalone package, likely call it Pokemon Scarlet Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, or Pokemon Violet Nintendo Switch 2 Edition for the actual separate individual package or anything else like that, along with the DLC or something like that. I mean, chances are though is about the fact that they're just simply trying to work on any other stuff worth noting for, and thankfully though, for the fact that the actual quality is going to be a little bit of the improvement, back in Journey forms of about the it's hard for me to explain personally, because we already know for the fact that it's been about 5 months since we've last had the Pokemon Presents, since in February, but now we've got the most recent one in July. So all it needs left now is of course the supposedly a Nintendo Direct by the end of the month, and exponentially we can able to actually definitely try to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, which we keep on asking about it so many times already, because let's face it though, after the release of Super Mario Party Jamboree, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, plus Jamboree TV has already been a thing right now, I wonder what's going to be up next for Mario, for I would say the majority of the Switch 2 stuff, most likely, just because, well, despite the fact that Switch 1 is still technically gets supported here and there, and hopefully though we can able to hear more about the forms of some other titles as well, like, you know, Kirby and the Forgotten Lands Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, and in addition to Kirby Air Riders and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond especially, and on top of that with any other like huge surprises in Journey forms of in 2026 and beyond, so yeah, that's gonna be pretty exciting as far as anything else we can able to predict right now. So, I mean, we'll have to wait and see what happens, and during at some point until, specifically until next week. So, And I suppose no matter what though, if that particular direct did somehow become real, then obviously though about the fact that Maxi will once again try to able to think about a special video dedicated to it. So either way, as long as about the fact that he can still play through Super Mario Party Jamboree for the time being, until maybe I'll try to ask him that until specifically once we're done with this particular recording session. And suffice to say though, unfortunately for you, Mighty, you've once again missed that particular star coin. So as a result, what are you gonna do now?
I might as well have no choice but to take a life away, so I think I might as well get hit by not only one huge Cheep Cheeps, but two Cheep Cheeps. So, oh well though, but at the very least we got ourselves a checkpoint, so that's something.
Yeah, I suppose that maybe seems to be the case. So either way, also, straight to the point is about the fact that there's also reassuring about this too, that recently though, we actually get ourselves the second bundle for the Nintendo Switch 2, which I was like, okay, that's cool. And what does it usually contain for the second bundle for the Nintendo Switch 2? That's of course Pokemon Legends EA download code included. So because of that though, similar to the forms of how it does it for the first bundle released for Nintendo Switch 2, that's of course with Mario Kart World, only now we're able to actually get ourselves the download code with Pokemon Legends EA. So yeah, that's actually pretty top notch, especially I think that generally in the past, that when it comes to Nintendo Switch era for the Pokemon games, they always attempt able to bring any other bundles with the actual specific systems themselves. Like for instance though with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee editions as far as I'm aware.
And this also applies with the forms of Pokemon Sword and Shield as well.
And I suppose maybe also applies with Scarlet and Violet as well. I mean, mind you though, we haven't played that much of mainline Pokemon games, I have to be honest here, but that's just mainly because no matter what though, I'm still really excited to see what's going to be up next for Mario after, you know, 3 game releases for Nintendo Switch 2 so far, in regards to the forms of the Mario games potentially. So
anyway, I was gonna place my huge string right there to get my chance to get 30 coins maximum to reach at the very top of the flagpole.
Yeah, because no matter what though, instead of able to actually reward you a 1-up, unlike the forms of how it does it on any other new Super Mario Bros. Games up to this point, so instead you're able to actually get yourselves 30 coins. So in fact, that reminds me of so much of Super Mario Run, where you also get coins if you dare touch the flagpole at the end. So yeah, I guess that's radically similar, except the fact that in Super Mario Run, that you obviously go into autopilot mode, or in some cases you're able to actually continuously running. So I digress. So now it's my turn now to do the secret stage in World 2. So as a result, I get the feeling there will be not 1, but 2 exits. Oh, I just realized that since I'm going to be on Mini Mushroom, so what does that make me do? Oh no, it's an auto-scrolling section! Or the auto-scrolling stage, rather. So, yeah, wish me luck at this point, guys. Because, since I'm on Mini form, this means I have to watch out for, any other enemy encounters, and especially noticeable, just, well, do not get crushed, basically. In fact, this stage reminds me of so much of one of those levels in New Super Mario Bros. 2, where it does the same thing, except the fact that it does manage to take place in a different environment, such as the beach environment. So I'm guessing that switch right there will pretty much guarantees us to lead me to, I would say, the secret exit right there, because I'm usually guessing something, so oh goodness gracious me. But anywho though, as far as the release date is concerned, it's basically unchanged. So as a result, the game is expected to still be releasing until the 16th of October for this year in 2025 for you know, Pokemon Legends EA. So as a result, yeah, that's gonna be pretty exciting for Pokemon fans out there.
And during the informs of that particular trailer, mind you, Ray, that obviously though we get ourselves a new Mega Evolution Pokemon, and that's what appears to be Dragonite. So, and from what I've seen it looks very awesome, especially because considering that not only he does have 1 pairs of wings, but in addition to 2 pairs of wings, one at the very the back, and on top of that, another one at the very top of his head, which I was like, oh, that's very bizarre from its design choice, but regardless of such though, it is nice to see Dragonite gets Mega Evolution at long last. So yeah, I can agree with that. Especially, I get the feeling that a lot of Pokemon fans out there were expecting to able to actually get themselves the Switch 2 version instead of Switch 1 version because, you know, like I stated before, it's about the fact that the Switch 2 version is going to be a lot superior. Oh, there's a... Oh, no! I was so close at the very end. In fact, I noticed there was actually a yellow pipe, which I'm thinking that might actually lead me to the third and the final star coin, would it? I would say so. Oh yeah, something worth noting for too is about the fact that if you do die in a level, you're able to actually hear a different Too Bad jingle, which appears to be some sort of like a remix version of Super Mario Bros. 3 Death Sound, which as a result, yeah, that sounds very familiar, at least as far as we somehow brought up with Super Mario Bros. 3 several times since in yesterday for our parts. So yeah, that's quite interesting, don't you think? Yeah, exactly, so... And also, as far as I'm aware, that so far with our Let's Play of Super Mario Party Jamboree, it's actually gone pretty popular so far in terms of views count, because... Well, I don't know about you, but I'm guessing it's probably because a lot of viewers out there seem to really enjoy our Mario Party content, specifically though with most recent entries at the time for the sake of the forms of, you know, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Mario Party Superstars, and in addition to, well, older titles as well, ranging from Mario Party 7 especially, and especially noticeable with Mario Party 8 as well. So, logically though, is about the fact that we're doing pretty well of our Let's Plays department in any other Mario Party games up to that point. Well, usually for the sake of time though, it really doesn't matter with the quality, for the sake of some of these games anyway. Well, apart from Island Tour, as well as Star Rush, because the quality itself is a bit average while looking back on it though. I mean, then again though, we would have liked able to have the capture cards device for our 3DS, but unfortunately though, as you probably already expect, the pricing is about to get ridiculous now. Depending on what 3DS you might be able to actually expect to, you know, get a capture card from. Alright, now it's my turn again to do this stage again to find the secret exit, and I know exactly where that is. So, anywho though, the next thing they did brought up, and I'm afraid to tell you for this point guys, most of these announcements are just filler for the sake of the forms of the most recent Pokemon Presents, ranging from you know, more updates on more mobile Pokemon games like, you know, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Cafe Remix, and Pokemon Masters EX. And on top of that, more raid battles for the sake of the forms of, well, you know what I'm saying with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And in addition to that, Pokemon Sleep, that the roaming legends, specifically though, Entei and Suicune and, Rakio, I think is what it says anyway, that they're about to be making an appearance in Pokemon Sleep in Journey Evolves event sometime in September this year. And meanwhile, until November, the new area will be discovered, which appears to be Amber Canyon. So, yeah, that's something. And I suppose I already mentioned about this before, there's going to be a 4th anniversary of Pokemon Unite, and as far as I'm aware, they're going to be bringing in not one, but 2 Pokemon, such as Latios and Latias, which I already know about these Pokemons before, thanks to the forms of Pokemon Heroes the movie, or specifically Pokemon the Movie 5, so as a result, yeah, you get the idea for that point, which, yeah, that again though is about the fact that we're not a huge Pokemon fanatic, but we do recognize some Pokemon names, specifically though, legendary Pokemons, and in addition to mythical Pokemon as well, like, you know, Mew, Celebi, Jirachi, Manaphy, and, Shaman, and in addition to, well, Victini and Metawella, and you get the idea. Because as far as I'm aware though, for the sake of time though, Ray, is about the fact that by that time, once we get to Generation 8 and 9, and maybe potentially the 10th generation, this is where we started able to lose interest with the actual other Pokemon stuff, as far as we are aware of anyway. Well, don't get me wrong though, we still really like Pokemon, but it's just that I'm not exactly a huge, ginormous Pokemon fan, I must say. But either way, now it's your turn now, Mighty, to do with the first Airship Fortress level, so that's pretty different.
Because usually, relatively speaking, in every levels or every single world in New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, it always takes place in the castle levels at the very end. So, at the very least with the newer Super Mario Bros. DS, some worlds it does manage to take place in some castles, whilst in some other worlds, like World 2, World 4, and I would say World 6 as well, it does manage to take place in the Airship Fortress level, similar to the defaults of how it does it on some worlds, and not only in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but in addition to New Super Mario Bros. U as well. Like, as far as I'm aware, in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, I think there was like 3 Airship Fortress levels, and meanwhile in New Super Mario Bros. U, there's only like, I would say 2 of them to be exact. So, yeah, it feels like a less quantity. In terms of these airship levels, as far as I'm aware, in New Super Mario Bros. U, or if you want to count New Super Luigi U, that'll be a, well, basically though you're able to actually have 4 Airship Fortress levels combined within New Super Mario Bros. U as well as New Super Luigi U all in one. So, unless if you really want to get yourselves, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch. So, but yeah, I would have liked to be able to explain more about the forms of some other announcements they'll bring for the sake of the forms of Pokemon Presents, but I will let Maxie will mention more about it if he goes back on playing through Super Mario Party Jamboree by, I would say until tomorrow that he will come back into it, and maybe, just maybe, that he might able to actually decide to do 2 boards in a row for the sake of the forms of the upcoming schedules at that point. So, I mean, we shall wait and see. So either way, so we've met again with Bowser Jr., and the next fight we're going to be fighting against is, well, at least for Mighty anyway.
Really? A Mecha Goomba early on?
Yeah, because kind of thinking about it though is about the fact that previously though you only fight against with the Mecha Goomba in World 4 in New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, so I'm pretty sure the entire battle it just basically feels unchanged, except now it takes place in the Airship Fortress aesthetic. So,
and not only that though, the music is different as well, which like you stated that before, it's based off from Super Mario Galaxy 2 boss battle music, so...
And there we go, folks. World 2 is fully completed. So, and thankfully though, as you can definitely see on screen, we don't need to worry about utilizing the mini mushrooms now. So instead, we're now moving on into World 3 straight away.
And after we're done with World 3, we can now able to actually get into World 4 easily now. So,
yeah, that's actually pretty, good in our parts, because we really refused able to actually go in to deal with the forms of some boss battles with the mini mushroom, because that way it'll make things a lot more difficult as it seems. So,
anyways though folks, suffice to say, we should probably end things off this point right here.
Yeah, exactly. So join us next time for some more Let's Play of newer Super Mario Bros. DS. Is that we're going into World 3, which appears to be called Dory's Island. Okay, that sounds interesting. It's almost like a combination of both the beach world and the forest world respectively. So, yeah, that sounds familiar. So we'll see you guys until next Saturday.
Later, fellas.